just give you guys a quick update with what's happening in Iowa because we got a lot of stories that are going back and forth. So first and foremost, here's a recent update that's been happening. As it stands right now, Bernie Sanders won the popular vote, but in regards towards 62% of precincts reporting in, as it stands, and I still have a hard time believing these numbers, especially after last night. Pete Buttigieg at 26.9%, 10 delegates. Bernie Sanders at 25.1%, 10 delegates. Senator Elizabeth Warren, 4 delegates at 18.3%. Joe Biden and Amy Klobuchar. Of course, Joe Biden being in fourth place and Amy Klobuchar being in fifth.
It's a strong fourth. It's a very strong fourth. Don't
but
forget
again,
we're never going to live down the strong fourth thing. That's
right.
We're going to just we'll keep bringing that up.
That's never dying.
But
it's a strong comment.
But here's the thing we got to take away from this is that 62% reporting in. So we don't have all the information. This is only just barely enough for anyone to really get enough data from what happened in Iowa. And after last night, who knows how this is all going to turn out. So let's get started with our first story, and that is the epic fail that was in Iowa. So Monday night, journalists, progressives, activists, community organizers were all just paying attention towards how this first primary state was going to turn out, as we've all heard before, time and time again, that Iowa is a place where we're going to find out who the nominee is, and then we go to the general election. You know what? I think that myth is done because I think people are tired of how much of a disaster a caucus can be, especially the Iowa caucus. Let's look at it like this. Oh, we all wait in line. We flip a coin. Coin disappears. Oh, wait. We decide to have a little corn kettle, put in a little bucket. Then we decide who our candidate is. Oh, wait, no. We're all going to be on one side room and another side room. This is heavily antiquated. You know, whenever I hear anyone say we need to bring freedom to, I don't know, South America or the Middle East, what kind of freedom? The system we got in Iowa, it's a complete disaster.
If there was oil in Iowa, I would advocate for sending freedom its way.
You know what? Just give me an honest dictator because I think that's a more competent system than what we saw there in Iowa. So there's a system, as we all know, and we're going to probably going in onto this a little bit later. Acronym, a Democratic digital nonprofit organization, Shadow CEO, and also associated with Shadow Inc. It was basically an app that many people were using in the state of Iowa to keep track of how the results were going to be tallied in. As we all now know, that app was a complete disaster. Now, it's very important to know that Shadow Inc. has ties and received funding from Acronym, and Shadow CEO Gerald Nimria, who worked on Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign, basically, the state campaign finance records indicate that the Iowa Democratic Party paid Shadow more than $60,000 for web development over 2 installments in November and December of last year. So again, this is one complete disaster. And at one point earlier in a live stream that I did last night, just before midnight, I mentioned that the New York Times had a clear idea of who the front runner was, or at least they were the only news source that I could find that had any clear indication of who is ahead of the race. But then sometime later, that information just disappeared last night as well. So this is starting to become a serious situation in regards towards how the rest of the primaries are going to turn out. So I want to open the floor up to the rest of my colleagues, Paul and Daniel. I want you guys to take this away because we got to remember, Iowa, it was a disaster. Iowa is
a disaster.
Yeah, it is. More importantly, it's an embarrassment because the whole world was watching us.
Right.
And we didn't have a result until right now.
Right.
At 4 p.m. Central.
We don't even have a result now. We have a partial result.
A partial result. Yeah, that's being kind right there. So, guys, take it away. Paul, why don't you go first?
Well, yeah, right. A partial result that it has so much room for questioning and so much room for skepticism in it. Like, okay, how much are you not actually relying on this app? Why did you go ahead and change these rules so early, so soon before the primaries? Why did you try to force this app on everyone? Why, call center, being able to call in to report totals was reported being down, just the giant debacle. And yeah, Iowa can be a debacle, but the amount of, I think, apparent institutional influence this time around is more blatant, particularly in the wake of basically Bernie Sanders in 2016 saying, hey, it seems like the DNC has had their thumbs on the scale, and we should be on the lookout for these types of things. Look out for trying to, rig things in this way. Look out for this type of financial malfeasance. Look at the way that party chairs and rules committees and Democratic stalwarts are doing things in a way that seems to tip the scale. And while the 2016 DNC fraud lawsuit focused on some specifically different things because it was specifically a different election, and it was dismissed in a Florida court, it is going to find its way through the appeals process to the Supreme Court. It will be heard in the Supreme Court, and this is like another piece of evidence, at least in the mind of the court of public opinion, as to like, okay, well, here's the DNC doing everything it can to act as a private organization while pretending to take a sample of the will of its voters, right? And that, whether you can find a legal case to show that you definitely can't do that, or if the Supreme Court says like, oh no, it's totally cool that one of the two major institutional parties in this country appears to be operating in a way against the will of its voters fraudulently, and is not really representing what it even claims to represent, that's totally fine in our American democracy. It's a huge thing for people to look at and say, that's a problem. We don't want that. We want to actually, like, you're blocking out a huge percentage, like the vast majority of opinions are not being represented accurately as a result of this. And what ground do we ever have to stand on anymore, ever, when we go, oh my God, Evo Morales won this election and there was, things weren't quite on the up and up. Didn't you hear the Organization of American States say so? Not like we don't fund them like a huge, like we don't have any major sway in that. We need to bring our freedom and democracy to them, right?
No, we don't.
So we don't.
We don't have to do that.
How do we have any ground to stand on after this, not just national, international embarrassment of an election?
Look, just real quick before I hand it over to Daniel. Look, I think we all know that the DNC establishment and RNC establishment are both messed up, corrupt organizations. But it's really sad that when the Republican primary got done before the Democrats did, and of course we all know that Trump was going to become the nominee, but the very fact that they were finished and wrapped it all up says a lot about how the Democrats are running this primary. And Iowa, look, it's a canary in the coal mine right now because we have to be concerned about how the rest of the primary is going to turn out because not all of them are caucuses. Some are caucuses, some are closed states, some are open state. Daniel.
And so I think that this is the important part that you brought up a little bit, Paul. And there's another part I want to get to very quick before I even get into that, and is they put in paper ballots. So there are backups this time around, which is all we've really been asking for I don't know, a couple dozen years, it seems. And again, this is something that Tulsi Gabbard brought up and was literally shot down earlier in the cycle. So I just want to point that out, that we do have paper ballots in Iowa.
That's the correct conclusion.
Yeah.
Right?
Tulsi
is
was
to,
right.
to fix the actual voting process.
Yeah. And so in this entire thing, it's just been such a mess, such a disaster, such an unmitigated disaster that we're dealing with right now. And this we're going to. I mean, we have the entire show to talk about the app and everything here, but I'm just very happy that Sanders' team was prepared and actually was able to, like, they had 40% of the precincts they had people at that were like, oh, we're going to make sure they don't screw this up. But they also had Sanders was. Remember, we covered a story like the day before how the media was like, "Oh, Bernie Sanders is going to announce early that he won." Turned out it was Pete Buttigieg. You guys got that wrong again.
Right.
So this is exactly. Sanders did his job. His team did his job. They had backups. They had records. And to be fair, in this day and age, it's really hard to pretend that a caucus result didn't happen a certain way because there's pictures everywhere in every single location. And yeah.
Right.
But how does the Sanders campaign then make the case to both the DNC and to the American voter? Look, we collected these totals, and there's on the up and up, and you should trust us.
There's actually two things I want to bring up.
Let me answer Paul real quick before you answer Paul as well. It's because if you have photo evidence, he can bring that to people. It's in a sense, it's a fire that burns.
There is evidence. Hold on, there is evidence because as it stands right now, Bernie Sanders and his campaign had their own individual app that they were using. Of course, it was with the campaign, but it was way more accurate than what the Democrats were using. And on top of that, too, what both of you need to remember is that Bernie Sanders brought his campaign, brought his lawyers in to be involved in this Iowa caucus. So no matter what, no matter how the DNC screwed this system up or how they were close ties with certain candidates, most notably Pete Buttigieg, which we'll be going over later, in one of your stories, Daniel. It's the fact that Bernie Sanders is ready for this fight, and so is his campaign. So there's something to take away from this. Now hold on. It's not all gloom and doom. There is some hope, but it's up to his campaign right now and Bernie Sanders' supporters right now to keep pushing forward and taking away this narrative from the establishment. And I think also, we should also mention just how messed up the whole Iowa caucus is and how they actually pick a candidate. Because I think we have two videos. Now this should boil your blood and actually call in for much needed change. In fact, let's show those two videos.
Let's show them democracy in action.
Of how democracy works.
All right,
Freedom.
So these are coin tosses.
Yeah.
Right. I will play them through twice. They're on a loop. I have two different ones to show you.
And wait, before you cut over to them, guess who's never seen a coin before?
So, go ahead.
You're gonna call. I'm gonna flip. Okay. All right. Jeez, this is unbelievable. Ready?
Yep. Tails.
It is tails. So Pete Buttigieg wins the coin flip and the second delegate. We're gonna name the delegates in just a second.
Whose coin is this?
That was mine. That was mine.
So, go ahead.
You're gonna call. I'm gonna flip.
Okay.
All right. Jeez, this is unbelievable. Ready?
Yep. Tails.
It is tails. So Pete Buttigieg wins the coin flip and the second delegate. We're gonna name the delegates in just a second.
Whose coin is this?
That was mine. That was mine. What you're watching right
Then flip it over. Flip it over. Heads. Buttigieg. You want to do Buttigieg.
All right. So Buttigieg will get 3 delegates.
Do you agree with what you're watching right
Then flip it over. Flip it over. Heads. Buttigieg. You want to do Buttigieg.
All right. So Buttigieg will get 3 delegates.
Wow, that last coin toss. That's his failed attempt to be a magician. I think he's practicing hard. I mean, I don't know. But hey, that's how democracy works.
Doesn't quite
Look,
have that sleight of hand down.
Yeah, I know. It's like a really, really epic failure. But see, this is why we need to reform our political system now more than ever. Because if we don't, we're going to get more of this bullshit. So now we have to move on to our next story.
Daniel wanted to. Yeah, didn't you have something you want to say also about the coin toss?
Oh, no, I'm just saying, it literally looks like the guy has never seen a coin before in his life. Like, he's looking at it like, oh, this is what the peasants use to transact with each other. I only use $100 bills.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just the way he looks at that coin is like how I look at an animal I've never seen before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
who
it's
knows?
very alien to him. Like, what is this thing?
But you
yeah,
know what?
but that's. I mean,
But
first
see-
of all, that it ends up in a coin toss in the first place is a little bit ridiculous. Like, okay, because we can't split up these delegates in this way, even though the percentages in the popular vote worked out differently. That's a little bit of nonsense to begin with. But then to like, yep, that's what it was. Nobody look at what it actually was.
Right.
At least do like a D20 and actually make it look like you're putting effort into
Yeah.
it.
No, but see, again, it goes to the major issue of why we need to get involved, why we need to reform this political system, and why the Sanders campaign needs to continue to be aggressive. And here's hoping we get the full final results of what happened in Iowa sooner rather than later, because New Hampshire is right around the corner.